All right, welcome to session number 3 in this hiring, orientating, and onboarding series that we are just about to wrap up here. So if you've missed session 1 and 2, no worries. They are uploaded into the academy, whether you are in the program, one of the courses, or in the mentorship membership, it is there for you, okay? Along with the workbooks and along with any of the checklists that you will need to pull and use when you start doing this hiring process. You'll want to have those at your side to just help make things flow easier. That's what this is all about, right? I want all of this to be easier for you. And we did poll everybody that is currently in the academy, and we asked, where are you lacking confidence the most when it comes to either A, doing a client intake, or B, doing an employee interview in the onboarding process? And almost every single one of you answered B. So I really do hope that once you go through this 3-part series, that you will have that confidence to really approach your first interview with just feeling like you've got this and you know what you're doing and that you're going to check off all the boxes and that everything's going to just be awesome, not only for your new caregiver, but for your company and going forward for compliance, right? Because that personnel file is a big piece to the compliance puzzle. So all of this is here though for you, so it's no worries at all. This is all good. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to take a look at this PowerPoint together. Okay. We'll back it up to the beginning. Okay, so this is hiring confidence and finalization pieces. And what we want to make sure that you walk away with is understanding how to finalize a hire. We want to make sure that you understand how to learn to identify those red, yellow, and green flags that we talked about in prior sessions. Um, and also building a complete onboarding process as well as reviewing required onboarding documents and systems. Okay, so the question is, when is somebody officially hired? Like, when can you say, all right, you're in, like, I've got everything all together and you're in. At what point does this happen? And the answer to that is after all the documentation is collected and verified, that background check is completed, training is also confirmed. You make sure, depending on what state you're in, that they come to you already with training, or you need to set up training for them to go through. And maybe they have to do that in your state before they can take their first assignment, or maybe they have some time, like 90 days or 6 months to complete that training. So please check your rules and regs on that before just sending somebody out into the field that does not have training. All right, you also have their orientation either completed or it's scheduled to be completed, right? That one's got a little tiny bit of wiggle room when we're talking about when is somebody officially hired. You've got them entered into your program, your software, or however you're going to do that. If you're just starting out and you're like, whoa, I'm not ready for the fancy software, like, no worries, I get it. You can do really, there's other ways to kind of get your staff into a scheduling program. Some people use Excel, and that's a really nice, easy way to just get started and dip your toe in. There's also all kinds of different scheduling software programs, and I do have my top recommendations for 2025 uploaded into the portal. It's under the scheduling module. So you can check that out if you'd like. But so they all range in prices. So I definitely like back in the day, they used to be super, super expensive when they first rolled out. Now there's a nice variation. So I like that a lot. Makes it easier for everybody to participate. Okay. Then you also want to consider a welcome message or a job offer. And when I asked how many of you do this already, either from past jobs or maybe you've already started the hiring process, um, and and quite a few of you actually shared that you do offer a welcome message. It doesn't necessarily have to be a handwritten letter. It could simply be an email. But the importance to that is it just feels official, right? It feels official. Maybe in that welcome message, we're saying, hey, and here's your orientation date. Or hey, here, reminder, here's your first start date. And so glad to have you on board with us, right? So, really just connecting more with that person, giving that final welcome. It just feels good. And so, of course, I do have for you a welcome template, a welcome message template. You don't have to do anything. I have that for you ready to go and use once you hire your first team member. You can just email them that if you like. All right, so now some must-have documents before that very first shift. We do want to make sure that we have in their personnel file their I-9 and W-4, or if you're doing a 1099, you wouldn't have a W-4, their emergency contact form, a direct deposit form, if that's something that you're doing, the signed handbook acknowledgement. That is so super important, right? So that is one thing I can say with certainty that auditors like to look at. They like to know, see that acknowledgement in that personnel file. So you want to have that. Some HIPAA and confidentiality, either training or a form that your agency has confidentiality policy, right? And you have them sign that. That goes right into that personnel file before they're hired. The orientation completion log. So that's going to look like your orientation packet, everything that is completed that you do during the orientation, all those checkbox, 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 signature, signature, signature. That's also going into that personnel file, ideally before well, it will be before the first shift. They're going to be orientated. And then, of course, any of your state required documentation, you're going to want to have that as well. All right, let's go ahead and look at the flow of a complete onboarding process. So basically what's going to happen is we're going to collect and review an application. This is going to come to us. This could be come to us just like through our website, right? And like I like to recommend, easy route of entry is starting out with even a Google form. They're free, and you can make up a really cool application with a Google form that you have a link. You can send it to people, they can apply, it immediately comes back to you. Of course, you're going to print it out to have for the file. But that's a nice, easy way to have like an electronic application. Like literally, you could set it up in probably 45 minutes. And everything that you do need to set it up, of course, that's all inside the academy. All these documents are inside the academy that we're talking about tonight. So you'll be able to access those. All right. So you collect and review that application. Then you're going to conduct that initial phone screening or interview that we talked about. And I believe in session one, we talked about that. And basically, what we're doing there is we're gathering information. We're trying to figure out and feel this person out, see if this is somebody that we want to bring in that phone call, if we want to bring in for the actual interview. Or maybe you hop on the phone and you just say, hey, just come on in. That's going to be totally up to you. You can use the phone call to kind of screen and see if it's a person you want to have come in, or you can just bring them in. Now, the next step is going to be You're going to review their scorecard. So we talked about using a scorecard. Basically, we're going to be looking at different things that how they answer things, how they um, present themselves, how they respond to certain scenarios. And we're going to be giving them a score. And based on that score, what I shared with you is a scoring system that will help you decide like, do I move forward with this person or maybe do I not? All right. So we're going to be utilizing that scorecard. Um, if they're clear to move through, so we're assuming they are, we're going to be verifying their background, right? We got to do that, doing that background check, schedule and conduct orientation. And we talked about this in session two, based on which state you're in. Some states, you can go back to that lesson again, are going to have requirements how long your orientation needs to be. Some states have no requirement, others are like 6 hours, 8 hours. Um, I think we even got up to 40 hours in one state. So you're going to schedule and conduct orientation. That might be a half day or a full day. Then you're going to collect and file all the required documentation, like we just talked about. Go over any skills checklists and any training that you think that you may need to do, right? We're going to go over all the policies, emergency procedures, give them the handbook, get that acknowledgement signed, and then set expectations. So scheduling, assignments, the point of contact. So this is like a lot of the stuff that happens within the orientation, but we're just highlighting a few of the key elements. Step number 11 is going to be kind of optional. And I say kind of because we say here assign a mentor or a point person for follow-up. There definitely needs to be a point person for your new caregiver to follow up with. And in the very beginning, I imagine that that is going to be you. So, but if it's not just you, as your business grows, you may have other caregivers that have been with you for a year, for 2 years. And you can, if you feel so called to do so, you could consider assigning them as a mentor. So that would mean for your employee that has been with you for a year, 2 years, that when a new caregiver comes on board, this mentor is going to maybe take them, meet with them at their first assignment to go over things about the client. Maybe this mentor is going to do some follow-up phone calls and check in and then would report back to you. But this is really nice because it kind of takes this task away from you. And it also gives this really nice incentive for your current caregivers to have a place to grow and to be able to grow into another position within the company. Sometimes, and I hear this, a lot of caregivers who work for agencies sometimes feel like, well, there's no place for me to go. I can't go anywhere with this company. I'll always just be a caregiver. So having some of these sort of um, mm, ways that they can step up, that they can advance themselves is really, really nice. And it means a lot to them. It gives them responsibility. It gives them a little bit of leadership, right? So you could have that as your number 11 once you get going and once you're in this a year or two and have a mentor. I would definitely recommend that one of the requirements for mentorship be that they've worked for you for at least 1 year. Um, and then that's nice too, right? They're not like, oh, well, after 3 months, I'm a mentor. No, 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 no. You gotta you got to give some time. You got to show what you got. And also, I want to retain you for at least a year before I decide to move you into that position. All right, number 12, we already kind of talked about entering the caregiver into the scheduling system. And then number 13, mark them as hired. When all of these steps are complete, you can mark them as hired. All right. So we did quite a bit of practice with the red, yellow, and green flag indicators, and this is just kind of a little reminder of that. Um, and the scenarios, we played them out in sessions 1 and 2, but basically, red is going to be a deal breaker or serious concern. Yellow is going to need some follow-up or coaching, and green means ready, reliable, and professional. Um, so when we are doing this interview process and the orientation process, what I want you doing is really kind of thinking about these flags and thinking about making little like notes. And you can think like, oh, geez, wow, they came in with all these awesome green flags, right? They were dressed professionally. They filled everything out correctly. They asked really great questions. And they're ready to work and ready to get to work and have a lot of availability. And then all of a sudden they come to orientation and they're dressed like really sloppy and they're on their cell phone and they're distracted and you're like, "Oh my gosh, who is this person?" But wait a minute, where's that person from the interview? So you might be like green flag interview, yellow flag on the orientation. Or it could even lean into a red flag, right? But what we're trying to do and identify here, I mean, if they're a red flag from the beginning, we may not move them to orientation, right? And that will have to be up to you. That'll be up to your gut feeling. That will be up to what you're willing to accept and not accept for your company. And also, like we talked about throughout these sessions, is really asking questions like, hey, is something going on today that you're on your phone so much. I didn't notice that as much in the interview. I just want to make sure that you understand, like, when you're here for orientation, I really need you focused in here. But is there something going on? Like, maybe there's a family emergency, right? And they still want to show up for orientation. So we really talked about that, like, really asking those questions, but also utilizing this system, these flags, to also, when you're, 2, 3 weeks in, you can go back and say, okay, I had a yellow flag at orientation. I was really worried about being distracted. I'm going to follow up, go out and do a supervisory visit or check in with the clients and see if the phone or being distracted is still an issue. You see what I'm saying? So we're making a mental note of it and or documenting it, and then we're going to follow up on it because nobody's perfect and everybody does have bad days, right? But maybe it doesn't want to stop you from hiring them, but you still want to be aware that it might be a thing. And I'm not saying like it's hard because I'm not saying like you got to hire everybody because definitely do not hire everybody. Um, I'm just saying, like, if they've got a lot more green flags than the other flags and you really want to give them a shot, you think they're going to be good with your people because it's about the people, then, proceed with caution. But just know that you may need to do some following up or additional coaching. All right. So some final tips here is review and finalize your onboarding file before you hire, right? So having that personnel file ready, having your orientation packets ready. Those are super important. Documenting your red and yellow flags for future references. Using score sheets and those flag systems consistently, staying in regular communication with your new hires, either yourself or through the mentorship, and trust your instincts and document everything. Like if you're like, in my rule of thumb has always been if I wouldn't have you in my home to care for my loved one, then I'm not going to hire you to go into my client's home. And that's always been my rule. So, and I'm not saying that has to be a rule. I'm just sharing that in hopes that it helps, because it can get a little sticky and a little tricky, all of this. So just trust your instincts and you've got this. If you have any questions at all, do not hesitate to reach out. I hope that this was helpful and informative, and I'll see you in a couple weeks. Bye.